Hello and welcome to the Outdoor Gibbon Podcast, episode 46. Can you believe it? I've made it to 46 episodes, and what's really interesting is we're still in season 1 2 years down the line. I think what we might do is we might close season 1 off when we reach that half century, and we've got an absolutely fantastic podcast recorded for that half century, so you don't want to miss that one. But what we're going to talk about in this podcast is we are going to jump in and we are going to talk about a dog breed. The people who own this dog breed think it is the ultimate in dog breeds. It is the stalking dog. It is the hunting dog. It's the wildfowling dog. It is a Korthals Griffon. We actually have 4 people in this chat as well as me. So it's the biggest podcast we've done in a single recording, 5 people over a meeting. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. But before we get there, let's just have a quick recap on where we've been. We've had some absolutely wonderful shows. We've had the stalking show. We've had the Scottish Game Fair. We've had the English Game Fair. Didn't really enjoy that much. I think it was too big. Obviously living up in the northeast of nowhere, that was just a little bit on the big side, and actually it was a bit disappointing, to be honest. I think the layout could have been much better. Anyway, all the seasons are pretty much flat out now, and the year's rapidly approaching an end. You can tell that because we've already got those nights are drawing in. At one point we were still out shooting roe at 10-11 o'clock at night, and now you're back indoors by 8:30. So yeah, it's racing on. But anyway, let's get on and have this conversation, and hopefully everybody will find it interesting. I certainly did. There was a lot I didn't know about this dog, and it seems to be something that these people are very passionate about. So just before we actually get into the body of the podcast, I was asked to read out this sort of introduction to the Korthals Griffons, just because I don't think we actually covered it in the main body of the podcast. The Korthals Griffon was first introduced to the UK in 2000 by Mark Taylor, who went on to breed out of his Radipole kennel based in Dorset. Mark was closely followed by Sue Hanson, Roclaire, who was the next in bringing the KG into the country from France in 2001, and so it began. Mark and Sue, together with Jon Roberts, Sanjons, went on to establish the first KC registered breed club in 2004, working hard to promote the working side of this brilliantly versatile HPR. The Korthals Griffon UK working group was soon established back in 2018 by Mark Taylor, Sue Hanson, Sue Wagstaff and Matt Lewis, out of the desire to help and encourage the increasing number of Griffon owners into the working side of the breed, which was shown to be dropping off in favour of keeping them purely as pets. The focus at this time was mostly on the show ring. The group was striving to protect the breed's standards, type and purpose for which these dogs were bred, for whilst filling the gap for training and working events to see the breed return to its working origins in the UK. This is a vigorous, robust dog with a workman-like natural appearance. It's a medium-sized dog with a harsh coat. It should have a well-developed moustache and beard, which gives its characteristic expression of firmness and assurance. The coat's colour should be of a steel grey with a livery brown patch, solid liver, liver roan, liver brown and white hair. The dogs are 55 to 60 centimetres and the bitches are 50 to 55 centimetres. Hello and welcome to the Outdoor Gibbon podcast. Today I've actually got a huge room full of people and we are going to be talking about the Korthals Griffon, which is also known as the Griffs. It's a breed of dog, an HPR, and we're going to jump straight into the history of the breed, and we've been joined by Sue Hanson, who can tell us a little bit more about how they appeared in the UK, etc.
Right, well, I'll do that. The breed's named after its initial breeder, who was a chap from Holland who was called Korthals.
Okay.
And he was an avid hunter, and he wanted a dog that would cover all ground in all seasons and in all weathers. He rather liked the look of the hairy wired dog, because that fulfilled the need of a dog that could withstand all weathers, especially in winter in Holland, where they had such icy, watery conditions. So there've been these hairy dogs all over Europe for many, many years, but they were just sort of hairy dogs that were either good at hunting or not so good at hunting. So he decided that he'd collect a few together and do a bit of selective breeding and see if he could produce a dog that fitted his criteria.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he didn't live for very long. He died when he was 45. But when he was 24, he bought 4 of these hairy dogs, and that's when he started his breeding program. And he bred over 600 puppies in that 24 years before his untimely death. But only 62 of them went into the original stud book that he had produced.
Oh, okay. So was there sort of, you say that he bred over 400 pups and only 600 and only 4, was it 62 you said went into the, right.
Yeah.
And what was the reason for that? Do we know?
Well, he was very selective in his breeding. It had taken generations for some breeds to have a resulting type, should we say.
Okay.
But he managed to do that in these 24 years, which is quite phenomenal, really.
That's yeah.
He did have a bit of knowledge about selective breeding because his father was into breeding cattle, and a specific type of cattle, which we now see as belted Galloways.
Okay. Yep.
Belted. But these, of course, were called Larkenveld in Dutch. And so because his father had this sort of knowledge of breeding, I think that rubbed off onto Korthals very easily. There was no, of course, knowledge really of inherited characteristics other than what they actually bred. So it was a bit of guesswork at the beginning. But he ended up 24 years after his first breeding with a type that was consistent.
Okay.
That had been his aim and objective.
So I'm assuming then that type that's consistent, you can then get recognised by, is it the Kennel Club or how is it, where is it recognised?
Well, they were recognised for the first stud book was in 1872, and then the enthusiasts of Korthals, it was a breed club, but it had a very strange name. It was called the Nimrod Club for some reason, and that's where the Dutch Griffons were first registered. Those 60.
Okay.
There was a German club in 1889, but the Germans were very jealous of Korthals because they didn't quite like what he'd done. because they had the German Wirehair pointer, and they thought that the Griffon should be part of the German Wirehair.
Okay.
So they were quite miffed about that, which was one up for the Dutch against the Germans. Then after his death, the breed really was taken mainly by the French, and Monsieur Prudhoe, he was a real advocate of this breed, and the French really, they were fanatical about it, really, and
Right.
they were the main developers. The Dutch also, but not so much as the French were.
So when it was obviously the French were using it, what was the main use for that dog in France?
Well, it was a bird dog mainly. The French also hunted it on boar.
Okay.
And the Germans, of course, they hunted it on deer and wounded game. Not the Germans, not so much as a bird dog, but more as a tracking dog after wounded game.
Oh,
You
fantastic.
you do find that the German lines are a little bit harder, and the French lines are much softer.
Okay. Right. So when you obviously harder, softer, how do you mean? Is that sort of the dog is more focused on a specific line, or there's something about the nature of the dog when you say a harder line?
Well, because the German bred ones are mainly used on wounded.
Okay, so more the tracking and the baying of obviously a wounded animal.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, that's kind of a good introduction to the breed. So let's move over to Sue Wagstaff, who is going to tell us everything about what this breed really does and everything like that goes with it.
So I guess following on from Sue, the dog was developed as pretty much a rough shooting dog, and that's
Okay.
what they excel at, and that's what I love to do with mine. That's where he comes into his own. So they're effectively developed to find that one bird in a 10-acre field and put food on the table. That's the idea behind the developing of these HPR breeds.
So let's just jump back a bit quickly. Anybody that doesn't know this dog, can we just get a quick description of what the Griff actually is like? Is it a small dog? Is it a large dog? Is it a medium dog?
So it's a medium-sized dog.
Okay.
Sue, do you want to take that on? Sue Hanson, do you want to take that on? The description of the Griff.
Right, it's a wire-haired dog.
Okay.
It should have a very coarse wire-haired coat, but a very soft undercoat, because that is its waterproofing and its blanket, as it were, when it's out working in the cold, wet, icy, miserable conditions that we can work our dogs in.
Okay.
In the season, we don't all have good days, do we?
It's medium-sized, hairy, bearded dog. So, like I've already covered, rough shooting, and that's what we all like to do. We all like to, take our dogs out, have them shot over, or shoot over them ourselves.
Right.
And get some food on the table. They can be used for all sorts of other things as well. We compete with them in this country and on the continent. Sue Hanson and an old Griff friend of ours, Mark Taylor, they've taken their dogs across the continent and competed in trials in France. Sue, is that right?
Yes,
yeah.
In the days we did, yes.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Okay.
So, and obviously in this country now, they're becoming a little bit more prevalent in field trials, and they've had some good success in field trials in this country. I'm dipping my toe in the trialing. I've completed a couple of trials in this country already, and I'll be out trialing again this season, hopefully. But we use them for grouse counting. We've all been out on the moors doing grouse counting with them.
I was going to say, I have seen some photos. I think Davina's been putting stuff up, people out
Yeah.
on the moors, working away, doing the grouse counts with them.
Yeah. So we're quite lucky and feel very privileged when we get invited to go grouse counting, because we get to go on some stunning moors.
So quick question, because obviously as we are, 2 days into the actual grouse season, with this is being recorded on the 14th of August, how have, wherever you've been counting, because I'm not exactly sure where you've been counting, but how have your grouse counts looked?
From my point of view, not the best. The same problem that you were discussing earlier on, the weather has been really stacked against us this year, and the young birds have perished. There are some good moors that have had really good counts. We have a trial at my gun dog club in Alston in Cumbria at the end of the month, so they have deemed that their count good enough to run trials on, but possibly won't be running paid days and driven days.
Okay.
I don't know, Davina, you've had a couple of counts this year as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I've had a couple of counts in a couple of different places, North Wales and in Derbyshire areas.
Okay.
And again, sort of very mixed numbers. We had some coveys of 8 sort of on Saturday when we were out counting, and we were privileged enough to see black grouse as well as red. So, we were super lucky to be able to work our dogs on 2 different types of birds. So that was brilliant. But like Sue said, very mixed numbers in comparison to what we've had in previous counting years. So, yeah.
Have you had any... Sorry. No, go on. Sue, have you had any counting up where you are, or have you had any feedback?
No, I haven't been counting this. No, Sue. No.
Okay.
I know that the weather absolutely decimated the first hatch, and I don't think there's been much on a second clutch for them.
No.
So we had probably a first hatch young going about, but I think a lot probably have been just the weather's hit them. I think the ones that have survived have just been very lucky. But the second brood really hasn't done well at all this year. But we've seen quite a lot of black grouse as well. We're quite lucky on the bit of hill we've got. So there's quite a few black grouse kicking about.
That's exciting.
We need to come up and visit you.
Yeah, definitely. It's really good. It was lovely actually. End of last season while we were driving out I think I was driving out to get a hind for somebody, and we had about 4 or 5 black grouse cocks just sitting by the side of the track, and it's just like, well, it's fantastic, really.
How lovely is that?
Yeah.
So so you were saying, but obviously bird dogs counting.
About bird dogs counting, we do spring pointing tests as well with the HPRs, and our dogs have been. I've had some success with spring pointing, so it's generally on partridge. Adult dogs are tested on partridge. They have to be steady to pheasant, but they need to find pairs of partridge. So again, it's finding the ground that holds partridge.
And when you say spring pointing, just obviously as a complete newbie to this, is that where you're working in with the gun, but working next to you, and the dog will go in, sit there, start pointing, and gradually as you come up to it, it will then move in to flush that bird?
Yeah. So there's no shooting involved in spring pointing because it's after the end of the season. It's about testing. Essentially, it's testing young dogs and testing their natural ability to hunt a piece of ground in a reasonable pattern, covering the ground, finding game, holding the game, flushing on command, and then being steady to the flush. Fantastic. So it's all of those elements are tested in essentially what normally is a young dog, although adult dogs can be tested as well. But it's about looking at the natural ability of the dog and taking it forward the following year, and sort of upping its game and knowing that you've got the natural ability to work your dogs on birds and game.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, wow. So, and then obviously I think we touched on earlier, like boar and deer. So these dogs can be used for tracking and finding deer and things like that.
They can. That's Davina and Gareth's area of expertise, I'm afraid. I don't do any stalking or tracking.
So you're purely game, flying game at the end of the day with yours.
Yeah,
All right.
rough
So
shooting is what I really love to do.
okay. So
That's my
And in the
that's my passion.
The dogs are graded.
Yeah.
You either get a grading or you don't get a grading. You're lucky
Yeah.
if you get a grading, let's put it that way.
okay.
So recently, February this year, we were in Northumberland doing spring pointing,
Right.
and I was lucky enough to get graded excellent with my dog. You grade good, very good, or excellent, depending on their natural ability.
Okay, and this grading, there's a body above this, or is there an overseeing group that does this grading?
It's just the gun dog groups, the HPR gun dog groups organise the grading, and they're judged by generally a panel judges.
Okay.
That are involved in the trialing world.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so you have got at least a bunch of people that are looking in with all different experiences to actually give you that grading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, let's dive over to then Davina. So we're talking now. We've covered the flying game and we've covered the breed. So these can also be used as stalking dogs and tracking dogs and things like that. So tell us a bit more.
They are the most amazing stalking companion and tracking dog I've ever witnessed.
Okay.
So what I love about them is a lot of people will just leave the dog in the car, they'll go out stalking, shoot the deer, go and get the dog, and that's it. With these, they want to be with you. They have a switch. They are totally silent. They are the best companion you can have with regards to sort of being quiet, being alert, being able to air scent and ground scent as well. So where my other half stalks a lot is in the borders, Scottish borders.
Okay.
So you've got a lot of hills, a lot of woodland. You can't see over the hills. You've got no idea. Your trusted thermal can't see through a hill. But this dog next to me, his nose can tell me that there's a deer on the other side of the hill. For a really long time, my husband doesn't use a thermal because he just thinks the dog just does a far better job, and it really does for him. So not only will it sort of identify that there's something over the hill, you'll be able to tell from his body language by watching him that there's something there. Get in position, have your shot, and then you've got the second part of the tool. You're obviously able to track with him. So he's just like a tracking machine. So apart from doing the sort of stalking and actually being out in the field, we did a lot of tracking the Straussen tests with the Bavarian Mountain Hound Society.
Okay, yes.
And he is known as a wrecking ball when he goes out and does any sort of tracking tests because he's so speedy. He just literally puts his nose up. He's like, I don't want to follow that blood. The deer head's over there. I'm going that way, and literally will bulldoze you towards where he needs to go. He's just got such drive and determination. He doesn't bay. And we don't want him to bay. We need him to be quiet sort of as we're stalking along.
Yep.
But his indication, as long as you're able to read your body language, is really key. So Gareth might be able to add a little bit from sort of taking tests out.
Well, I guess I can add a little bit because I bought mine into a family purely as a stalking dog,
Okay.
and then I had a major deviation. So the one thing I'll say, anybody that considers any HPR breed and they make the transition as I have from retriever world to HPR world is get yourself a good trainer right from the very start, because they are a completely different breed. But it was, getting into having training, which, I was advised I must do PDQ. That got me really interested in the full sort of like hunt point retrieve aspect of the dog. So whilst I bought her for as a stalking dog because stalking is my absolute passion, I had what I would call a major deviation to start off with, and then kind of brought her back out stalking because I do a lot in Argyll in Scotland. I go there for several weeks a year, and she's a pleasure. As Davina said, you have this lovely little companion that comes out with you. I won't mention other breeds that come out because I'll take the wrath of the world. But they're nice, pleasant dogs. They've got a really nice nature and really nice character, and they don't yap the house down when you're kind of walking out with them. So they're cracking. They're cracking little dogs. And as Davina said, sadly I do use a thermal. It is something I use. But the
use
core
your
tool.
dog.
the Korthal. I mean, the most important thing about a Korthal is it doesn't have a battery that runs out halfway through the day.
Well,
So,
there is that, yeah.
really useful. And secondly, I think they're more accurate because you've got your clear fell, you've got the ditches, you've got the hills, you've got the woodland where your thermals are utterly hopeless. Getting through the initial bit.
That's a good
the nose
point,
of the dog,
Gareth.
brilliant. Yeah.
That's a really good point about the breeding of the Griffs as well. They were bred to have stamina to go all day long.
Yeah.
They're essentially air scenting dogs, and they obviously track when they're tracking and stalking.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's like Davina referred to, that air scenting will get you the deer, and that air scenting will get you the birds. But their stamina is phenomenal.
That's always one of the things, isn't it? Yeah. You've got to, if you're going to take something out, especially on the hill for grouse, as I know, like you get a small spaniel that if it's not up to it, it's knackered by the time you've done 11k. But obviously, if you've got something that's happy to just be out there and has the stamina to keep going, especially stalking. If you're up in Argyll, are you stalking reds or are you stalking roe?
Red roe and seeker. So
okay, right, okay,
red roe and seeker. Yes, lovely.
Fantastic. So obviously, especially with seeker, you've got to be very quiet. So you really got to have a dog that doesn't make any noise.
Yeah, I wish I could be this sort of same really, and not make quite so much noise as I go through there. But they're far more quiet than their handler. And in fact, if I'm honest with you, and I had this conversation with Sue at the weekend. Any errors that usually happen with the dog are down to me and not to do with the poor dog that sits there and looks at me in utter disbelief sometimes. But they're cracking little characters. They've got cracking little characters.
So as somebody who's obviously taken one of these on recently, we're going to put you on the spot now and ask you the question. How, obviously, you said you came from labs. Now, isn't it saying that, what is it? A lab comes half trained and a spaniel dies half trained. How difficult is it? Because obviously, if you've got a dog that's got like certain pointers, certain hound breeds, other things like that, some of them can be quite stubborn and can be quite tricky to actually get to sort of take in information. Obviously, labs want to just please you, and so do spaniels. But obviously, I don't know anything about HRPs. How difficult are they to actually get the training?
So I'm going to start off by talking about the handler, because I think that's the most important thing.
Yep. Yeah.
My lab's lovely. Take them out for walks, and you kind of have them pottering beside you or doing whatever you want. Spaniels dart around your feet and might go out a little bit one way and a little bit the other way. The first time you see your dog on a grouse moor and it heads out and it keeps going and going and going before it takes its first turn on the wind, you're thinking that dog's never coming back. But of course, and it really took a long time. The people that are out there, the really experienced people, and this is why I say you need that kind of trainer. The really experienced people say your dog's with you. It's watching you. Every time it runs and takes a turn, it takes a little look towards you. Now, I don't see that because I'm, to be frank, panicking when you first do it. It took me, and Davina will know this. We've been up to Scotland together on sort of like shot over days. It's taken me probably up to the third year of Tess's life to actually sit there and say to the trainer when they said, "Oh, come back." I said, "Yeah, I know. I've got no problem. The dog's there. The dog will come back. It's hunting as it should and hunting as it's been designed." In terms of in terms of the handler as well, you get out of your dog what you put into it. They do take an awful lot of work and commitment. They take a lot of training, and as I say, training not with an expert gun dog trainer, but an expert HPR trainer, somebody that truly understands HPRs. And in terms of the nature and how I've found, and there are people with much more experience on here than me, they look like a tough little nut, but they're really soft on the inside, and you have to train them, give them confidence. Make sure that you're with them and working with them to try and improve things, and it's the relationship building of this sort of like lovely little natured animal that you kind of get the most reward out of. But the transition, would I go back to retrievers? And again, I know I'm going to take on the wrath of everybody here. If you go out for a kind of, you're going out for your daily training session with an HPR and it goes on full point, on a bird, your hackles go up on the back of your head.
Yeah.
You watch it kind of, going down, getting into a nice sort of like pointing position, absolutely rock solid. You kind of push it onto the bird, it flushes, the dog's steady then, and you watch the bird go away. Labradors are lovely, and don't get me wrong, they're wonderful animals, but the HPR, and particularly I found the Korthals, just really takes it that step further.
Fantastic.
That's just absolutely spot on as well, because when you think about the HPR, and I'll take the Roth from the retrievers and the spaniels as well. Your retrievers have got one job. If you're looking at your HPR, it's in the name: hunt, point, retrieve. They do the thing from the beginning to the end. And training that, retrieving is the only element that you have to train. The hunt and the point, if your breeding lines are correct, is all natural ability. And so when you get to that point that Gareth is talking about, when your dog runs across you sideways on the moor and goes bang on point, that's a spine tingling moment, and that's what it's all about. And that's what you put your time and effort into, getting your dog to that point.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, because as I say, I've shot over a Brittany Spaniel in Ireland that was pointing for snipe, and that was probably one of the most exhilarating things ever, just this little dog getting there. And I think we've had one other pointer out, and that was on a bit of a rough pheasant day, and I think that was a Vizsla almost that went into the point, and it was a bit I've heard of pointers, but it's one of those things that obviously to see them working and all the rest of it's quite spectacular. But here's the question: can you take your bird dog and have it as a deer dog at the same time?
I'd love to answer that. So
Go for it.
What I really like about the breed is also the breed is quite a dual owner breed, in respect of that our Griff is actually my husband's dog, but he will work for me as well. So I will be taking him out on the first day of the wildfowling season. He'll be out with me up at Lindisfarne, but the week before he'll be out stalking with Steve. So he is able to do both things. He has a switch, in the same way that if you're tracking with your dog, you put your harness and your lead on, etc. The dog knows it's actually in tracking mode. So they do switch, and they are able to sort of work birds and big game as well.
Oh, that's really good, because obviously, otherwise you end up with like a pack of 10 dogs, because you've got one for birds, you've got one for retrieving, you've got one for deer days, and it's a massive food bill and a crazy thing. But people obviously are looking for something that's not gonna destroy the house. They're not going to be massively stubborn. I remember training a friend used to get us to puppy walk hunting beagles. So we always wanted them trained up, and they were not your typical beagle, but trying to train a hound that only intention was to please itself and do what it wanted to do. Yeah, it was just a nightmare. My wife was at spare. She's like, the spaniels are easy. They learn, but this thing just never seemed to want to do anything.
I think we've painted a very favourable picture of this dog, and they're a wonderful dog, absolutely wonderful. But the one thing that we all know is that they are a slow maturing breed. So it's really, really important to take your time, find the right trainer, as Gareth said, and don't be too harsh with them. They don't take harsh handling. They're a very sensitive dog in that respect, but robust and sort of up for it when you get to that point. If you, like Gareth has already alluded to, you get what you put in. And
I think that's with any dog. If you the more you put into it, the more you'll get out. But if you're too rough to start with and things like that, you see it on shoot days though, don't you? You'll see somebody that's too much stick, and the dog literally sits there in a terrified state. But then you've got the opposite of somebody that's too much treat reward, and the dog just looks at them and goes, I can do what I want, because there's no punishment coming from this.
It's
finding isn't it? But a griffon is a very soft character underneath all its tough exterior. You need to. I've heard them described lately as being obstinate or stubborn, and that is not the case. If that is seen to be part of their character, it's because they're not understanding, and they're not understanding what is being asked of them. When they understand what is being asked of them, then you've no problem.
Okay.
You've got to understand. You've got to understand the mentality of the dog as well as the physicality of the dog. And some people as yet haven't got that. And I think the mentality, understanding how the Griffon thinks, is one of those. I can't put it into words really.
It's a skill.
Something the handler either gets or doesn't get. Yes, I can't put into words any other way than that.
It's a partnership, I think, isn't it? You have to,
Yeah.
you need to respect the animal has to respect you, and then you build that partnership.
Yeah.
I was going to say, did you see any issues, obviously, with, let's talk about dog breeding, because during COVID, the dog breeding world became an absolute disaster. Everybody realized that you could breed spaniels, you could breed labradors, you could breed labradoodles, sprockadoodles, you name it. It was created. Was there any issues, obviously, with the breed, people thinking, oh, well, we could try and make something different, or did it stay fairly true to its roots?
Sue, do you want to speak on that?
Oh dear. Our breeders suffered, I think, mainly because we've had a limited number of breeders. I think we can count 5 or 6.
Okay.
So we have a very narrow gene pool.
Yes, we need to bring in lines from the continent. Gareth is, well, you're nearly there, aren't you, Gareth? He's going to bring in sperm from the States, hopefully, from a marine dog from there. But we do need our gene pool expanding, but with the right type of dog.
I was going to say that must be quite tricky to get the right, to find the right type that hasn't been messed with or altered along the way, and is still true to the actual original breed that was the one that was wanted.
Yeah. We've had quite a few outcross lines that have produced type that isn't quite correct. So people have to understand that they've got to go back into one of the initial lines to get back to type.
Right.
But this is where we've got a Sue, you see. So, you know, if anybody considers it, and you can go into Sue, she's got such a wealth of knowledge that you know, we've got that real expertise in this country where, you know, the real kind of quality can come into the breed program.
No, that's the most important part, because obviously if you've got this line of dogs that's doing exactly what you want it to do, the last thing you want is somebody has a bright idea that, oh, well, if we go down this way because my mate down the pub's got the same dog, we'll get a breed like that. It doesn't work, does it? It takes you away from where you're going.
No. Some people just think, oh, Griffon, cross Griffon, and I get a Griffon, which you do, but you don't get type.
Right. Yep. So yeah, realistically, is there any other wonderful facts that you guys want to throw in about these what sounds like the perfect dog for everybody that's a deer stalker and a game shooter needs to go out and get now? But there's got to be something. There can't be that many of them, and they must be on a waiting list.
Yes.
You will struggle to even though there are some, you know, there's breedings happening, you'll struggle to get a Griffon that's, you know, perfectly to type these days. It's down to the breeders as well and who they're selling to, because unfortunately a lot of them are ending up in just pet homes. And when I say pet homes, our dogs are pets. They happen to work.
Yes.
They live in the house with us because they don't kennel well. They're not, they're not a kennel dog that just comes out in the winter as a tool. They live with us on a daily basis, and they are characterful, they are loyal, they are all of the things that you would want from a dog once you've nurtured that relationship. But they're tending to go down the puppy route because the breeders are not explaining to people what they have, what sort of prey drive these dogs have, how they need to be trained, what they potentially can be used for. So it's a tricky one. They are a fabulous dog. There's no getting away from it. They are, my breed of a lifetime for sure. But you need to know what you're getting into, and they need a job.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem. People like the look of something these days, and they go, I'll have one of those. And I think it has been with HRP breeds that people don't kind of realize what they're getting into. And I've heard of people, I had this dog and it was terrible. It got into a field of sheep. It's like, well, the dog needs more exercise, more stimulation. It's going to do what it's going to do. Its prey drive. It's going to go after things eventually. If you don't take it for a decent walk or take it somewhere where the scent is not just hundreds of dogs walking every day.
Or give it a job to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's key.
Besides the physical exercise, the dog needs mental exercise and mental stimulation. And that's probably why a lot of people end up we've had over the years KGs going into
the rescue.
The rescue, yes.
Oh, right. Okay.
And it's not the dog's fault. Not the dog's fault that it ends up in rescue. It's just
so have
don't understand the breed. They're sold a dog, as you say. You see the wonderful head with the eyebrows and the beard and the mustache, and they fall for the look of the dog, but they're not they're not told how to understand the mentality of the dog and what the dog is initially bred for, and the prey drive that this dog has. I mean, you see them on not harnesses when they're working, but you see people with them, pet people now with them on a harness, and all I think is, oh my God, that poor dog. It just needs.
I had a really good experience.
It's just not doing. It's not living the life it should live.
It should, yeah.
Gareth, you were going to say something.
I had a really good experience with the breeder that sold me mine, and the reason I say this is because I think if anybody's buying one, this is kind of what you've got to look out for. First of all, I had to go through a rigorous process to even get on the waiting list. I had to explain what I wanted it for, how, what kind of my background was, and then they took up a reference with somebody that I worked with on a shoot, who actually was an HPR, a field trial, a top HPR field trial. He's done an awful lot, and just took up references on what I did. Then it was during COVID, actually. This was a COVID experience, so we had to look at everything over sort of like webcams, and she had the dogs all sort of like individually being shown for you on webcams, and I kind of made a selection as to what I thought, and she knew what I wanted it for, and she said, that dog's not for you, this one's for you, this is the one you want, this is the nature of this is the nature of that pup, this is what you want to do. And then kind of when I did my due diligence of the breeder, I wanted to work my dog. So I wanted to make sure it had got some good working the stud and the dam had both got good working credentials, and they had, and check it out, speak to gamekeepers that they work with, speak to sort of people that go out stalking with others that take them out stalking, and just get an idea of what the dog's about. It's a big commitment. It's a big commitment in terms of, forget the money. Money's nothing when it comes to a dog. Treating the dog right and getting the right dog for you is the thing that counts. So just kind of get that detail and get that knowledge. But once you get into it, like I say, it's an absolutely fabulous world to be in.
Yeah, it's
So,
interesting because obviously I was talking to a lot of I've had a few Scandinavians on, and dog training and dog buying comes up quite a few times with them. And I think the UK, we're quite lucky. Your experience sounds very much like almost a Scandinavian style of idea, because they really want to know you will not have a hunting dog from a hunting breeder if you cannot prove that you are going to work that dog. If you say, oh no, it's just going to be a pet in the house, it's like, we don't care. No, you're not having it. And that's fantastic, really.
Yes,
yeah.
that's
To put all of this into perspective, when I first started researching the breed, it was about 17, 18 years ago, maybe
Okay.
even longer. And they had taken my fancy. I'd never had an HPR before. And I looked at what they could do. I looked at what they were used for. I looked at the breed history. And I knew at that moment in time, I couldn't commit to having a dog of that nature because I didn't have the time to train it. So I waited 10 years to get my dog until I'd retired, so that I had he had my full commitment.
Yeah.
And then we've been able to develop that relationship. So and they're long living dogs. If they are healthy dogs, they are long living dogs.
So there's no inherent major issues with health issues with them, because obviously you find that some breeds have, there's always issues that occur with all breeds, but you say they're long living, so obviously that their health issues aren't massive.
Yeah, if they have no health issues, Sue has.
I just lost my old bitch. She was just 5 weeks short of 16.
Right. Okay. Wow.
So that's another consideration when people are looking at this breed. If they are healthy, they live a long time.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, isn't it? I think the people that are probably looking at this, it's going to be one of those things. It is going to be the companion dog that's going to go out on the hill. It's going to work with you, especially as you've all said. The dog is like it's just there. It wants to please you. It wants to be with you. So how do they get on? Obviously, if you have a few dogs, because there will be people listening that think, oh, this sounds like the one I want, but I've already got some labs. I've got my spaniel, or I've got, heaven forbid, a Bavarian mountain hound, which is there. How do they all interact together?
I think we've all got packs, haven't we? We've all got more than one dog, and I think we'd all agree that they get on really well with other dogs.
They integrate well.
Yeah, and they get on really well with people. They're a very gentle-natured dog. There's not a harsh sort of nasty side to them. They're protective. If someone knocks at the door, they're going to bark. They will be protective, but like Sue said, they very much are a home dog. They live in the house with you. They're not a kennel dog. They don't have any separation anxiety or anything, but again, that's as long as you're doing something with them. If you're leaving them a long time and you're working away or anything like that, it's probably not the right dog for you.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think that's the same with anything. It's when you hear people go, I bought a dog, I don't really have time for it anymore. It's like, well, you shouldn't have bought a dog in the first place, kind of thing. But that's just the nature of it. And I'm bad, as I said, we were having that early conversation. My first little bitch is absolutely fantastic. She went everywhere with me, did everything, but time changes and you don't get as much effort and you don't put as much effort into them. But luckily one of them has just come out naturally talented, so I'm over the moon.
A win-win.
Absolutely. Mum's rubbed off on her, obviously, in a very good way.
Yeah, but it's the good breeding. It's nothing to do with the handler.
It's all good breeding. I chose the right stud all the way through. That's all it is. Yeah. But that's one of the exact reasons that I kind of created my own line of spaniels, because once I'd found one that I really liked, I was like, no, I want to keep this going because I know what I'm getting. Whereas you go out and you get somebody else's dog in your line and you have no idea, do you? It's the same, I suppose, with what you guys have done here.
We've got, we unfortunately lost our first UK Griffon owner last year, and both Mark and myself, we only bred a litter when we wanted to keep one for ourselves. I only sell to people who work their dogs, but of course you're not going to be able to find all those people who work their dogs for so many litters.
Yes.
And so a lot of those now are in what we call pet homes. A lot of them will be happy dogs, but there'll be some amongst them that should be doing a job of work.
100%, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know some of my litters went
That's
to pet homes.
Your spaniels, you want to know what you're getting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Gareth now with his bitch, he's wanting perhaps another dog himself, so he wants it out of his bitch because that's important to him.
Yeah.
Because it's the next generation of what his foundation bitch is.
100%, and I think that's really important. And I think, but again, it's not being silly about it. It's not going, well, some people look at it, I've just taken on a bitch, I'm going to breed her now, and in 2 years I'll breed her again, and then I'll breed her again, and you ruin your dog to start with. But two, what have you actually got? Okay, you might have some cash in the bank, but you don't have the fun and the enjoyment of what you had in the first place, do you?
No. And if you're a breeder owner, you get the satisfaction of breeding your bitch and getting the best quality sire for
Absolutely.
your bitch.
Yeah.
And the puppies that ensue from that, you have a pride in those, and you want those to go to the best. But you're
Absolutely.
not going to have another litter in 12 or 18 months, are you? Because that's not what you're into.
I've kept in touch with most of the people that have got mine, and you hear the stories and you see them working and you get updates, and you know what, that's more important than anything. And they even phone you up, oh, I'm thinking of, can we use this as a sire? And yeah, that's fine if you do what you want to do, but at the end of the day, at least I know that was my line going forward. That's it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And fantastic. Yeah. Well, I think we've pretty much, is there anything else that I'm missing? But I think we've covered everything from the start all the way through what these wonderful dogs can do, to the point where we could talk about breeders and all the rest of it for a long time, but I think we'll probably leave that where it is. If there's anything else that's burning
talking about the dogs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we could add our Facebook page if anyone would like to find out more information. Sue?
Yep.
Yeah. So we have a Facebook group called Korthals Griffon UK Working Group, and we're just a Facebook group. We're not a club. We're there just to help people learn about the breed, and for anybody that wants to or is looking to work and train their Griffons, we can signpost them to HPR trainers. We will put on occasional days ourselves, and we can just help them. We're just there for as a friendly group that is open to questions and helping people that want to work and train their Griffs.
Fantastic. So I'll put a link to that in the description on here anyway, and then obviously if there's anything else we need, we can tick the right boxes.
Brilliant, thank you.
I think we just lost Sue out of the conversation, but that's not too much of a bother. But thank you ever so much for all of you coming on. It's been absolutely fantastic, and hopefully the listeners, that you'll all have a bit of more of an understanding about these, what sounds like the absolutely perfect dog if you're a stalker and a shooter.
We think so.
Yeah,
100%.
Superb. Well, thank you very much, and I think we'll draw this chat to a close. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I certainly learned something new there about a breed of dog that has been played with in the years, and they've come out with what they call the perfect dog at the end of the day. So on our next podcast, we are diving over to Sweden, but we're actually talking to a Polish hunter, and we're going to learn a bit more about hunting in Poland. So hopefully you'll join me on the next one as we carry on our European tour.